This is Michael.
This is Tristan.
And we are Weeabuds. Today we're going to be talking mostly about Final Fantasy VII, but there's a few things that we wanted to go over. There's been a few recent games that we've been playing during this current pandemic, namely the Bravely Default 2 demo, also The Messenger. Tristan, would you like to begin?
Yeah. Man, Final Fantasy VII Remake looms over this conversation. Its shadow it's quite ominous. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of hype for that game. So it's hard to not start the conversation, like just go crazy talking about that game. But, let's pull back and talk about, as you mentioned, maybe the Bravely Default demo is a good place to start.
Yeah.
You recently sent me an article, Mike. Tell me a bit about that. Tell our listeners a bit about that article.
So the producer of the Bravely series, I believe he's also connected to the Octopath series. He recently gave an interview, and in the interview, he apologized for the mistakes that were committed in Bravely Second, which, from what I'm seeing, it seems like they're basically erasing its existence just by calling this game Bravely Default 2.
So, additional context just in case, some listeners aren't familiar with the series. So, Bravely Default's actually sort of a spin-off or derivative from a game that Square Enix released many years ago, I think for the DS, was it? It was called Final Fantasy Warriors of Light.
Four Warriors.
Four Warriors of Light. There you go. Thank you. So, basically, there are a lot of enemies or villains from that game that actually made it into Bravely Default as like these kind of optional or otherwise there's some kind of villain type. But anyway, basically the Four Warriors of Light was a game that was harkening back to the old school Final Fantasy Super Nintendo kind of era of Final Fantasy games. And so Bravely Default, when they announced that, it's kind of separate. It's not based on the Final Fantasy canon. And it's somewhat similar battle mechanic where it's like turn-based RPG. But what Bravely Default did, I think it was for the 3DS. It's a gorgeous game. And basically had wonderful music. I think the composer is Revo. I still don't know how to pronounce that guy's name. Is associated with Linked Horizon or Sound Horizon, I think is his group.
Linked Horizon.
Yeah. So just fantastic composer. Fantastic work that guy's done. He actually contributed songs to Attack on Titan. So it was pretty easy to get behind just this kind of picturesque storybook world that Bravely Default set up. And it had a pretty cool kind of twist, later into the game. They kind of bungled some of the execution, but you played that game, Mike?
Well, yeah, I played it. It's one of those games where it came out in Japan long before it came out in America. There was a long story behind whether or not it would get translated, and it eventually was. I liked it. I thought it was fun, but the back half of the game definitely has some issues. Those who've played it know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's like this strange time travel loop that takes place at the end, not to spoil it too heavily. It's actually that's the interesting part. It's actually not a time travel loop at the end. It's actually
really cool
It's similar to a time travel loop. It's a really fascinating. It's interesting that they were brave and took that route. I don't think they executed it all too well.
I heard it's even worse in the Japanese version.
Yeah, I can believe it. But yeah, it was pretty cool, the idea. And so they had a bit of success with that game. A lot of people liked it. And so then what they did is they created a sequel called Bravely Second. See, Bravely Second was meant to serve as basically a direct sequel to Bravely Default. It took place in the same world, came out, I forget how many years later, like over 3. Yeah, it was like over 3 years.
A lot of the same characters. A lot of the same.
Half the team was the same cast, I believe, but the other half weren't. Same world, and they were just adding a few areas to it. Had a cool mechanic too, late game as well, that they executed much better. Big issue though was, besides the fact that they reused a lot of the same content, they also had like I don't want to say a shitty composer, but they basically had not. Wait, are we? Is that off brand? We're not supposed to.
We can swear.
We can swear just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No F-bombs.
No F-bombs on Weeabuds.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, long story short,
it wasn't Revo who was the composer, and the music that was there was very generic, especially with what people were expecting.
Some people liked it. I'm sure
they
there were some people who liked it. I don't know who they were. There's basically so one of the things that was fascinating was there was a teased secret boss in Bravely Default that was supposed to link to Bravely Second.
Was that through like the Street Pass stuff?
I don't know, maybe the ball.
Yeah, I think that was like.
It was like a really fat. There was an extremely amazing kind of surreal song that Revo had made to go with it, and for years I was hyped by that. So then they basically built the game around the concept related to that battle. It was really cool. That song that I loved came up as one of the main boss battle themes multiple times.
In Bravely Second?
Yeah, and it was really cool. There was some really freaking badass stuff in Bravely Second. Because, I mean, it was a sequel, and it expanded upon the world, and there were some reveals about characters and other stuff that I liked quite a lot. And it ends in a really, interesting place. I think I talked to you about it in the past. But, anyway, it wasn't a complete throwaway. And I would recommend it to people who were fans of Bravely Default. Absolutely. I think it's really tough, though, when you have someone that has such a style and just quality as Revo just go. It's just so it's just you could just tell it's missing. And it was really tough on me playing that game.
You played more of the demo than I did. What are your thoughts on it?
So I saw the trailer for the Bravely Default. So I mean, let's fast forward. They're making Bravely Default 2. They're just pretending Bravely Second didn't exist. They're doing that by just creating a completely new world. It's maybe it'll be related, maybe it won't. Who knows? People will still argue that the Final Fantasies are related. Maybe they are. There are some games that link them. So I don't want to talk about some of those games. They do a worse job than others. They don't do a good job like they do in the Dragon Quest series.
No.
No way at all. But yeah, Bravely Second.
Bravely
Default 2.
Yeah, Bravely Default 2.
Yeah, they made a demo for the Nintendo Switch. It's releasing the Nintendo Switch sometime in 2020. We'll see if that date still holds, since we've fallen into an apocalyptic pandemic of sorts. So who knows what dates mean anything anymore.
None of them mean anything.
Nothing means anything. Yeah, I agree. The only date that stuck was Final Fantasy VII Remake. But
I think they're just so far along. They got that early.
Yeah, they got it early. So that see? didn't stick.
Dates don't mean anything.
Hey, how's that Budweiser?
It's pretty solid, actually.
It's not that bad.
I'm not mad at it.
There you go. That's what I said. I was like, Budweiser, this is shit. And then I cracked it open. I was like,
I've had shittier beers.
Yeah, I've had shittier beers. Rolling Rock.
Oh yeah, for
Pabst
sure.
Blue Ribbon.
Pabst is terrible. Rolling Rock's on a whole nother level.
Whew.
But
it's pleasant. Anyway, sorry.
The thing that got my attention about this demo is they really did expand on the game from a technical level. I mean, it's a big power increase between the 3DS and the Nintendo Switch. But, for example, in buildings or in towns, you can now go inside buildings. That's, for that series, it's huge.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. But okay, so cracking open that demo is fantastic.
It's hard as hell.
Yeah, well, they upped it, as you mentioned to me in the past. They've upped the difficulty intentionally to kind of give it more substance, let players engage with some of the mechanics of the game a bit more. To beat it or to play through it, you have to expose yourself to a few more battles. which would give you more familiarity with the combat system. Or if you want to circumvent that, you have to master the ones that are there, and so that you can power through things at a lower level. It's the same old battle system.
I actually haven't noted mechanically. It doesn't seem at all really any different from the first.
No,
game.
It seems exactly the same.
Not a bad thing.
No, fantastic. But basically, Bravely Default, one of the best things about it is turn-based action. It's got 4 player characters on screen, and basically you have the ability to kind of stockpile your turns or use them. And that's kind of like a risk-reward system that they do that helps accelerate the pace of battle. You can kind of say, well, like, okay, I've got like 2 turns that I can execute now. Or I can use even more of that, but then I'll create a deficit and I'll have to wait that number of rounds before I can be active again. Now, the thing is, the enemy can do that as well. It's actually quite an interesting pace, and you also have the ability to accelerate the speed of battle that takes place. So mostly the same, and coming back are these kind of class changes. They call them asterisks. So the thing is, I saw the difference in terms of the art direction from the old game.
I think it's still Yoshida, though.
Oh, yeah. It looks like it's the same. Whoever that gentleman was, I'm not quite as familiar with this person. I always get them mistaken that he had something to do with either Tactics or Final Fantasy 12.
He had both. Okay. Same guy.
Well, that dude's hot. He's hot shit. His art direction is cool. He's got a little. These characters are a little chibi kind of style, but they're still kind of cool.
They look great. The texturing's amazing.
They're running on a really hot engine. If I had to guess, they're using the Octopath Traveler engine.
I could kind of see it.
Yeah, I think what they're doing, they have some shaders going on. They have some stuff. Octopath Traveler is I believe produced by the same gentleman that you were referring to from that other article. And so these are different teams that are actually designing or creating the games, but it's the same producer. So pretty cool. The demo was fantastic. They have a traversable type world map. I think like in the full game, you'll be able to go across it similar to old school Final Fantasies. You actually rotate the map around. I think that sort of thing like matters to certain players.
I think so.
I think it matters to me, especially in an age where you don't get these world maps anymore from like your Square Enix games that are just super linear. I really appreciate being able to explore on a world map. And they made the enemies, like it's not a random battle system either. Really cool. It was really cool. And of course they brought back Revo. And that was their star like achievement. They even show it off in the trailer, music by Revo or whatever, and it's like, oh yeah, I was like, oh my god,
thank God.
Yep, and it's good. The music already is fantastic. The art style with a picturesque world, they did it again. It's going to be great. You can already tell this is like this is a winner. I'm calling it already. Before I played the Final Fantasy VII Remake this past week, I, told Mike, I said, this is going to be the game of the year. Right? Bravely Default, guys. This is going to be the RPG of the year.
It's going to be the better game.
Yeah, it's going to be better than Final Fantasy VII Remake. I've been feeling like this is going to let me down. And then I played Final Fantasy VII Remake.
All right, well, we'll get to that soon enough. We've both also been playing The Messenger lately.
Oh, yeah.
You beat it. I'm still probably, I think, about halfway through, but
yeah, I had a weekend where I was able to just completely beast it, and Mike had been ahead of me, and I was asking him how the game goes, and then I got to the point. I can't talk too much about it because Mike legitimately stopped at the worst possible moment that you can in that game. You cannot really talk about The Messenger in its full deserved context unless you get like 2 minutes after where Mike's at. I legitimately could talk to Mike about everything in that game almost if I just had 2 minutes left. Or if he just had progressed 2 freaking minutes. He has to fight this boss. And it was a bit of a challenge. It's a challenging boss.
All the boss fights in that game are tough.
Yeah, they can be interesting. There's a lot of conversation you could have about the finale of that game. And
I wrote an article. The more I play this game, the more I feel I'm going to look like an idiot for that article.
Well, that's just because of some of the stuff I've dropped on Mike, but we'll talk about what you said in that article.
So basically I said that the Messenger is great, but that its habit of breaking the fourth wall is distracting and gets in the way of what it's trying to communicate. I get the feeling that that's not going to be true.
Yeah, well, I'll say that. So the Messenger, if you don't know much about it, it's a game. It's like a old school NES style inspired Ninja Gaiden style kind of game, 2D side scrolling game. I can't talk too much more about what genre the game is because that's a spoiler. It's certainly not what it seems, and the reveal of what that game is actually about. And what genre of gaming that is the masterstroke, like genius twist of the game that put a huge smile on my face and terrorized a lot of other gamers. Like I've read a lot of articles talking about how they did not appreciate the when you get past the prologue. Anyway, they don't appreciate. That they didn't appreciate the length of the game. They actually appreciated the DLC content a little bit more for the reasons because it relates closer to the beginning of the game. Anyway, I don't want to get into it.
Sounds dope.
Yeah, obviously it's a very slight exaggeration to call it a prologue, but it's quite entertaining how literal that translates. But anyway, it's a great game, looks fantastic, sounds great, and that kind of segues into the other conversation point is the team behind the Messenger, Sabotage Studio. They announced a Kickstarter some odd weeks back in the midst of this coronavirus.
I think at the beginning of April.
Yeah, and so basically they have less than 7 days left. Actually, I think they have less than a few days left. Actually, it's less than 7 days. It's like 3 or 4 at the time of this podcast recording, but they're it's going to be a game that's heavily inspired by classic Super Nintendo RPGs like Chrono Trigger. It's called Sea of Stars, and the same composer from The Messenger, this gentleman named Rainbow Dragon Eyes, I guess is his little like music gamer tag name. Fantastic music. They announced as one of their, like on their Kickstarter, that they were able to convince Yasunori Mitsuda, composer for Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross and many other just classic games at this point. He's going to compose some amount of music for that game. I think he'd probably like a song or two or something like that. That's pretty badass.
Any contribution from Yasunori Mitsuda
it's
is
a
amazing.
Miracle for them.
Me and Tristan had this conversation, and basically Tristan's like, man, it must be tough for Rainbow Dragon Eyes to have someone like Yasunori Mitsuda come in. And it's kind of like being the quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and then having Tom Brady get picked as your starting quarterback.
It's kind of a nightmare, to be honest. Like, it's really difficult. You're like, I'm pretty good. I'm Rainbow Dragon Eyes. And then suddenly it's Yasunori Mitsuda, who has inspired a generation of composers.
Widely considered one of the best. Just like an absolute legend.
He's gotten more experience, I guess. He hasn't gotten worse. He's still around. He's got a distinct kind of style. He does a lot of Celtic type music these days.
I didn't like his Celtic stuff at first, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, you can still tell it's there. He's still got a style that has matured significantly from his time with Chrono Trigger, but I think like somewhat was defined or stabilized by Chrono Cross. I don't know.
I think he embraced who he really was.
Yeah, he went sad.
When you put out an article a while back when they announced Yasunori Mitsuda was joining the project, my wife Martha, who handles our social media, she asked about him, so I asked you to pick 2 Yasunori Mitsuda songs to represent who he was. Which songs did you pick?
I chose the intro themes for both Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross. I think Chrono Cross is called Time Scar, and Chrono Trigger, I think, is just called Chrono Trigger.
Yeah. Both excellent songs, especially Time Scar.
They're so freaking good. And, I mean, as good as Chrono Trigger is, that Time Scar song is better. Mm-hmm. That thing is a masterful, sweeping, like, it's like the whole game in one song. It's so good. That soundtrack, Chrono Cross, deserves to be played just for that soundtrack. It's a masterpiece. There's no arguing that it's a masterpiece. Chrono Trigger, it's definitive. It's, in the sense it defined a generation of game music, I feel. Mm-hmm. But Chrono Cross's soundtrack is refined. It is fantastic. It is what it is. I don't know. I don't have the technical ability to talk about music. It's just amazing. It'll just make you feel things. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's enough about these RPGs, Mike.
Let's talk about another RPG.
Man,
Final Fantasy VII.
Not yet. No, now it's my turn to defer to Animal Crossing.
Oh, shit.
So Animal Crossing. So we're in the midst of this coronavirus scare. Mm-hmm. And because people can't go out and, like, mow their lawns in real life, I guess, they decide to do it in a video game. And so I actually recently was able to acquire a Nintendo Switch for my little sister.
I don't know how you pulled that off.
Through a miracle worker. And then I got my mom and my sis Animal Crossing, as well as myself, so we could all have separate islands and play at the same time. It was the right thing to do because they've all been playing it simultaneously. I'll turn on my Switch like at 1 o'clock in the morning, and then someone will yell at me. And I'm just like, go to bed! It's too late! Don't. And it's like, I'm a hypocrite. Because I'm sitting there like playing it too. But yeah, I mean, it's just Animal Crossing on the Nintendo Switch. They just built upon what it's just Animal Crossing on the Switch. It's tried and true. It looks beautiful.
Yeah.
It plays well.
I was really pumped when the game starts off and it looks like Tom Nook's going to be basically like the main character. But then partially through, suddenly Isabelle is taking over his roles.
She comes back.
Nothing wrong with Isabelle. She's cool, but she's no Tom Nook.
Yeah, but then a lot of people, they're like think pieces on the villainry of Tom Nook. And I'm like, he's
certainly a villain.
Going against he seems a lot better in this one. He's doing more. And, he's certainly like a cheapskate.
My favorite part is like, there's times when like you walk in the resident services tent and he's just like standing there chilling, drinking a beer.
He's certainly drinking a beer. They may say it's like island juice or whatever stupid.
No, that's a beer.
It's a freaking beer. Anyway, that was pretty cool. Yeah, not much to talk about. It's Animal Crossing.
It's fun. It's cute.
Yeah.
Good music. Wholesome. Maybe not as wholesome as some people think it is. There's definitely hints of bad stuff.
Do you have any examples of that, Mike?
Have you met Harv?
Oh my goodness. Oh my god. I was going to say, so at some point in the game, you're introduced to this guy who looks like he's some kind of like psychedelic hippie type guy, right? He invites you back to his island. You go into his island, and in the first room, there is a couch and these two lights and like a desk or something like that. It's basically a setup. Like, this isn't even my perverted mind. I shit you not. Check it out. It's a casting couch. Is that what you were thinking?
Something like that. Yeah, it's definitely.
Was that what you were thinking?
I was thinking it was more like a cold or something, but.
Oh no, that's a casting couch. It's really bad. It's so bad that anyway.
Yeah, like there's like fun little bits like that.
Oh, it's not good. You should check. It's some casting couch stuff. Go back to that island.
I'll check.
You're like, oh my god.
Next time I go there, I'll
where did Tristan go with this? I'm like, you want to?
That's exactly where you should have gone.
Yeah, it's like you want to be on camera. It's like, uh-oh.
You want to?
Oh my god. Oh my god. This is a casting couch call out. It's so weird. Anyway, and then there's all sorts of weird stuff like spooky stuff with like that bunny, Zipper T.
Oh man, that bunny.
Like that's a person in a bodysuit.
That Easter event, I'm so glad it's over. I'm tired of finding eggs.
Yeah, terrible event. Too many eggs. It was a nightmare. I'm glad it's over because now I'm actually finding the materials that I was looking for.
Like nuggets?
Nuggets. I require nuggets.
Everyone needs nuggets.
Yeah, everyone needs bells, miles, nuggets, and turnips. Anyway, that's what the 4 core resources of the game all should be surrounding those 4 resources. Anyway, that's enough of Animal Crossing.
Final Fantasy VII. All right, I started before you. Full disclosure, I'm on chapter 9. I think you're on chapter 7.
Yeah, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Close to the Airbuster fight. You fight Airbuster. It's a boss. You encounter him at the 2nd reactor. There are 2 reactors in that game. I don't want to talk more.
What are your experiences with the original Final Fantasy VII?
I played it. I played it a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I didn't beat it. And then the second time I did, I believe. And I tried to master everything that I could in it. Taught me a lot about how to play like a modern turn-based RPG. Before that, I played Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger is kind of a simplified RPG. It's like a chill version. There's like systems in it, but it's relatively like straightforward as a game. There aren't a lot of classes and weird things like that. No. Tactics or
stat things you can do.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward as a game. Mm-hmm. Not too much you can do there. Very good though.
For me, I actually didn't play it when it first came out. I didn't have a PlayStation, so I just watched my friend play through the entire game. I played it first on the PC probably around 2000 or so, and then at that point I was already my favorite Final Fantasy. This version I had some concerns. I still have some concerns, but for the most part a lot of my initial problems were alleviated. I really wasn't looking forward to the battle system, but now I think it's a fantastic battle system. There are problems I have with it. I think that they really did their best to draw out everything more than it needed to, and in ways that doesn't really add that much to the game. We'll talk more about that in detail later, but there is stuff that they added that's great. Like, for example, I liked Chapter 4 a lot. I think you were more lukewarm on it. There's like a lot of nice character moments there that I thought were cool. And then there's moments like chapter 6 and 7. Those were rough. Actually, chapters 5, 6, and 7, I should say.
Final Fantasy VII Remake. What a conversation one can have surrounding this. So, Final Fantasy VII, I got that game when it came out. Mm-hmm. Or at least sometime after it came out, but in the same year. I got it for Christmas. I actually had the Versus Books strategy guide.
I had that too.
That one was a badass strategy guide.
Back when strategy guides were a thing.
Did you have the strategy guide but not the game?
No, I bought the strategy guide when I got the game.
But didn't you get the game later?
Yeah.
How'd you get that book then?
They still had it in print.
Really?
Yeah, they still had it at Babbage's.
Babbage's?
It's, I think Babbage's became EB Games, became GameStop.
I don't even know what a Babbage's is. I've been going to EB Games for years. Before I met you, I was going to EB Games.
It might have been a regional thing.
My God, what is a Babbage? Anyway. Okay. So, anyway.
The PC version was tight, by the way, because it was like a... what's like a 5-sided polygon? What's it called? Like a pentagon.
Tetrahedron? I don't know.
No. It was like a pyramid without the top. It looked really cool.
Weird.
I didn't have a PlayStation.
Oh, I see. Well, what can be said? That game, the fact that Hamazu is a composer in the game is travesty.
Hamazu is a great composer. I don't think a lot of his arrangements or like new input really works with Hamazu's stuff. There's a song that plays in chapter 9, and it's actually an arrangement of a famous song in the original game. I did not recognize it at all until like I was like just kind of like sitting there for a second. I was like, wait a minute, that's that song. It's suddenly like a Hamazu fever. It's just crazy and techno-y and like buzzing and weird and
There's dissonance and weird stuff.
yeah. I don't like that version, especially since the song that it's a cover of is one of my
the ones like dun dun dun.
yeah. Have you heard it in this version?
No, I haven't. I'm not there.
Oh man, it's a nightmare in this version.
Well, you had mentioned you didn't notice that they had Barrett's theme in it.
Yeah, I didn't notice that at first. You said it was like a
They have
jukebox.
twice. They have it top twice. One was in the train.
That was like the Coral Village theme, wasn't it? I don't remember.
This game is
Much better than 15.
yeah, but I don't like some of the reasons. I mean, the things that it does better than 15, it does so much better that I wonder if I would still think it's better than 15 if it wasn't Final Fantasy VII.
Probably not.
Yeah, there's some really bad stuff in this game. Like,
What are the things you like about it?
Graphics in the main story areas are good. In this additional odd content that they didn't prioritize, they dropped the ball a little bit on the graphics. But overall, the characterization of the world and the
Art direction.
or the characters, everything they've put together to create and bring this world to life in this modern age is fantastic. Overall, you gotta give it a 10 out of 10 in terms of how they've put everything together to make this world alive. They have done it, and this is Final Fantasy VII in the HD age.
There's like you said, there's definitely some problems with it. In terms of graphics, mixed bag, like you said. Main character models are fine; they look great. NPCs and minor characters, they look PlayStation 3-esque.
Damn. There's a couple when you're walking through and you see them. These NPCs are pretty good. Like NPCs that are just throwaway, like not even really NPCs, being PS3 level quality. It could be worse.
It could be worse. Some of the environment graphics get really janky.
But those are probably, I'm telling you, those are probably in those areas that are like side content or just the filler crap.
Well, there's like chapter 6, I believe it is, when you're in the underplate. If you look down, it just looks so bad.
They're just hoping you don't look down. You were kind of sad when I told you that the so basically you're in the Sector 7 slums or whatnot.
Yeah.
And you look up and it's like basically such an amazing moment.
Yeah, it's like the first moment that I ever like saw what you see in the slums, which is like this giant massive plate over you. I was like, dang, this is amazing.
Now that's a sea of stars. You're looking up to see this techno wonderland above you. It's amazing. It's like on par with the visions of the future that, you know, the classic visions of the future from, what is it called? Was that movie with Harrison Ford? Blade Runner. It's amazing on par with like some Blade Runner type stuff. Like this is a futurist vision, like some real steampunk crap. It's amazing looking. And then and that's just a big giant image. Like the thing is, it's like the skyline isn't modeled. It's just a big picture that they have wrapping around the environment.
Looks great though.
It's fantastic. You know what's not fantastic is what Mike is talking about. You get to this place where you're hovering above the slums, and I guess it's like it's some kind of a metaphor or something about how shitty the slums are, that they wouldn't even give the slums the same level of detail in modeling. They had to model everything above them better than inside. Pretty sad.
It's bad.
That's pretty sad, actually. And then additionally, like there's like the side content area where that's buffered with a bunch of Hamazu songs where you have to go in and fight some enemies just to like pad it out. It's kind of throwaway. They didn't really think too much about how to do it. They didn't put a lot of effort into it. It's there's a lot of padding here to make this a game.
Yeah, there's like there's not all the padding's bad. Chapter 4 is an example of good padding.
And what they do with Chapter 2 as well.
Yeah, Chapter 2.
2 and 4 are fantastic. Highlights of the game for me so far.
And then the worst examples of padding were chapters 5, 6, 7, like I was saying earlier, where basically they took like these areas that are, I think, just like a couple minutes, like part of the same dungeon. Like this is all the same dungeon in the original game. They turned each of those segments into its own multi-hour dungeon with multiple bosses.
But the thing is, the dungeons aren't even interesting, and nothing that kind of expands the plot, story, or world really happens there.
No, just lots and lots of fighting.
No, that's what makes Chapter 2 and 4 so good, is that they're an example of expanding upon the world, doing something that wasn't in the original game, and doing it with, like, making a statement, doing it for a reason. They had something to do. You'd think that if they were willing to make those changes or those additions, that they would be able to do that for those other chapters as well. They're lazy, and I mean, honestly, like one of them is just you going in a straight line, fighting the same enemies over and over again, seeing the same repeat things.
Are you talking about chapter?
I'm talking about like the
airbuster part.
Like the train part.
Oh yeah.
You're literally just going and then you go back and then you go, and it's just kind of like, this sucks, and nothing story wise happens, and it's really long and it doesn't progress things that much. And then what do you get after that? An entire chapter worth of filler again. Not even story filler, just going and doing menial tasks. Like, it's not fun. It's lame, and you do have some combat opportunities that are cool. But it's like they're really heavily leaning on the stellar combat system, which is just probably, beyond the fact that this is Final Fantasy VII, is the best thing they have going for it. Mm-hmm. What they have done is they've like taken action RPGs and given it like the best action RPG system I've ever seen in my life. It's
like more RPG than, like, say, Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, you button mash in Kingdom Hearts. Mm-hmm. This, like, I was actually really worried. I'm like, man, this is gonna suck. Like, I can't jump around. I can't jump around all the time and stuff. Like, I like, that's what I want to do in an action RPGs. I want to jump around. But no, I didn't have. I was like, oh shit, this is intense, and I just like really like it. I like how weighty Cloud is. Cloud feels amazing. He's just like bam, bam with his big ass Buster Sword, and the sparks are exploding everywhere.
Yeah, especially in the Punisher mode.
Yeah, Punisher mode is not the normal mode. Like, they've done, like, Punisher mode is basically like a way to pull off like even more ridiculous, like, hard hitting combos if you're close to an enemy. Mm-hmm. It also has a built-in parrying mechanic. If you parry, he'll immediately, or like if you're defending and someone hits you, he'll immediately strike back and just rough them up real hard. Mm-hmm. And it's really cool.
I like what they did in terms of differentiating the different characters. Like, Cloud doesn't play anything like Tifa, doesn't play anything like Barret.
I think Tifa sucks.
I like playing as Tifa.
Tifa is like, Nomura was like, no, I like button mashing.
No, like, you can combo with her. Like, she's great for building.
She's not really good at combo.
Oh, she's great. And she's great for building up the stagger meter.
Dude, that's all I use her for. I just run in and start punching the hell out of someone. There's like this really crappy like side mission technical report system.
Oh, the battle intel?
Yeah, where you go and you do some kind of requirement and then you'll get like materia.
One of the best things about the battle intels, though, is when you unlock new battle intels, it, like, backtracks, like, your progress towards it. So, say, like, battle intel 2 is stagger 10 enemies. Battle intel number 6 is, for example, stagger 35 enemies. And all the enemies that you staggered in between unlocking that one get credited towards you.
Really?
So that's cool.
It's keeping track of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's good. I mean, I guess it's good.
The battle intels are lame, but there's some cool stuff that you do with it later.
I'm okay with battle intels. I like having achievements and things to strive for.
Wait till you unlock VR battles.
Oh, I heard something about that. Like, I want more of the battle system. This is a game I'll buy DLC for.
Do you think they'll release DLC?
This is Square Enix. They are looking to make money and nickel and dime you. And the only reason that they're doing such a good job on this is because they have such a wonderful world to draw upon. They're using the blueprint of one of the greatest JRPGs of all time. So
I think Miles, he put out an outline on what he expects the full Final Fantasy VII Remake series to be based on how they've handled this game. And I think it came out to like 7 installments. I hope Miles is wrong about that one.
Yeah, he might not be. Square Enix is a shamble of their former selves. Truly, they, we're also shambles of our former selves, I'm sure. You progress in life and you get to a point where you
just die inside a
little. You're just looking back on your life and you're just thinking that you think back at a time that wasn't that good and you were in it and you're like, I can't wait till I'm a badass someday. And then you get to that point where you're the supposed badass and you look back and you just think fondly of that past self. It's this terrible cycle. And then so in that same way, that's how Square Enix works. It's like Square Enix hasn't been good for a long time. And I say that in the sense that they had the secret sauce. They did it.
And then they fired Sakaguchi.
and whatever the hell happened with Nobuo Uematsu as well. But those two mistakes, I think that's where all hell went to, all shit went to hell. And so what we mean by that is, are they able to make sweeping epic things still? Sure. Do they have like wild imaginations and like freaky like JRPG story-esque things? Absolutely. Can they execute? No. No. They'll have artistry. They'll like art direction. Fantastic. Do they still have Hamazu? Absolutely. But that's all they have. They have Hamazu. And what we're going to talk about? They had to pull in Yoko Shimomura from Kingdom Hearts. They pulled her in to do Final Fantasy 15.
She was great there, though.
She was God tier. Yoko Shimomura is God tier. But they had Nobuo Uematsu. He defined what a Final Fantasy sounds like. And what, if anything, the beginning of this conversation, focusing on Bravely Default and the lack of Revo being recognized. And it is recognized as contributing to that game, Bravely Second, not being so good. Just think about that. And how we have Final Fantasy VII Remake, and we don't have Nobuo Uematsu as like, they should have been like, center. I don't know what the hell you're doing, Nobuo Uematsu. And maybe we have bad blood, maybe not. I don't know how Japanese gaming politics goes. They got to bring that son of a bitch back. I heard for health reasons he had to pull out. I don't know how real that is.
Health reasons, I think, is like one of those excuses that they use to save face.
It's like he probably was like, I don't want to do this shit. I don't think you should have this or that. And he's like, shut the F up, Nobuo Hamazu. Or maybe Hamazu said, Hamazu, I'm just going to assume that guy's chill. But like, maybe he's not. What if Hamazu's like, I'm done, I'm not going to work for you guys anymore. And Hamazu is BFFs with all the... Maybe he's like, he goes out, he's a drinking buddy. I don't know how it works. So then Hamazu, he's just like, F this guy. And they're like, okay, don't worry, we got you, man. And so like Hamazu's like, yeah, I gotta do all this weird Final Fantasy music in Final Fantasy VII. And so like Final Fantasy VII Remake, I think it works when you consider it separate from Final Fantasy VII. Because if you appreciated the story beats and like the pacing and everything, there's going to be some things that'll offend you. Especially with the ending that I heard about. I've been spoiled by Mike. Mike's been spoiled as well. You recontextualize whatever we're like.
We'll have a separate podcast where we discuss the ending.
We don't want to talk too much about this. The biggest spoiler that you can say for Final Fantasy VII Remake is that there are spoilers. Yep. People are like, no, of course there'd be spoilers. I don't care about the additional content. I'm like,
you'll care.
Yeah, no. That's not what we're talking about. That's not what we're talking about. So anyway, Final Fantasy VII, more to come. The remake, the reunion at hand.
Yeah, for me, so far it's great. It's, Final Fantasy VII, but not Final Fantasy VII. I like it a lot. It's not perfect. I do have some questions about some of their decisions, but overall, I've been impressed, and I'm looking forward to playing more of it. Anything you want to close with?
Is it a buy or a wait?
What?
Mike, is it a buy or is it a wait?
It's
a purchase or
it's a buy.
a hold?
I think it's a buy.
Is it a bull market or a bear market?
No, it's definitely worth a purchase. It's a AAA game that it's more polished than most and more thoughtful than most, but with some really bad decisions because the lead director is a character designer.
Yeah, they were like, "Oh my god, get this guy off of this thing." They have to get
Square Enix. If you hear this, please stop putting a character designer as your lead director. Please, he's not a director. He's an artist.
Yeah, the reasons this is working.
It's not because of him.
It's not because of Nobuo Uematsu.
Or Nomura.
Oh yeah, Nobuo Uematsu. Sorry, my bad. Nomura. I get the ends mixed up sometimes. Yeah. Sorry, Nomura. I saw that you put more belts on Rufus Shinra. That's his main contribution. Oh, he has another contribution, but I don't want to talk about that one until we get to the spoiler podcast.
Well, we'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.
See ya.